Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast. This is the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Cramer, England.
What's up?
What's up?
I guess we're not talking about a film today so
No.
much as a season of television based on a film series.
Yes. Based on a prequel.
Yeah.
It's a prequel series to a prequel movie that was filling in a gap that the very first film left.
The convoluted timeline web of the Star Wars cinematic universe,
Yeah.
and where we have think about when we were kids and what a big deal it was when episode 1 was coming out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That all we knew as kids was 4, 5, 6, and
Mhm.
we'd watch them every time that one of these movies is on TNT or something like that. It's like, oh
TNT.
man, Return of the Jedi's on. I'm gonna watch this movie, And we grew up in the time of the special editions, which was awesome. I don't care what anyone says; it was awesome to go watch the special editions in theaters
Yeah.
as kids, and it was like a huge deal that in 1999 we were getting a new. Or was it 98? I can't remember.
99, I think. Yeah.
We were getting a new Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And here we are. We live in a world where it's just like there's just so much Star Wars content.
Well, it really is strange that like this prequel movie and now this prequel series have ended up, and this is a general opinion, as being like the best of the new things.
So today we are talking about Andor season 1. We mentioned at the end of the episode last week that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously season 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus, so we thought, well, let's go back and do a rewatch of season 1, because you're right. Yeah. There is a sort of there's an opinion out there. It's not certainly not a consensus opinion amongst the fandom, but there are a lot of people who feel like Rogue One is maybe the strongest or one of the strongest films ever made in the Star Wars series of films.
Yeah.
And Andor is maybe even better than Rogue One. It's my personal opinion that Andor is the best thing ever made in the Star Wars cinematic universe. It's not just my favorite Star Wars thing. It's one of my favorite TV shows I've ever seen. Wow. And I was excited to do this rewatch. And the whole time I was rewatching it, I was like, this is the best show I've ever seen. I was like, this show's it boggles my mind how good it is, because it just doesn't seem, it seems like there's like a cap on how good a Star Wars thing can be. And this show somehow just constantly pushes past that limit for me, where I'm like, I lifelong Star Wars fan here.
Yeah.
Like grew up lifelong, huge Star Wars fan. And I just always sort of thought there's a limit to what this world can be as far as like narrative quality, or what I expect out of it, I guess. And honestly, that my expectations for Star Wars quality have been diminishing over the years more and more and more. I think like the reason why I liked The Force Awakens so much when it first came out is just because it was good at all. Like I just was like, please be good at all. Please just be a watchable film. And I was so relieved that there were like practical sets, and that there were action sequences that were fun and thrilling, and that there were characters that were interesting and well acted and intriguing, and storylines that had interesting questions to them. And the fact that I didn't really care that the movie was a narrative retread of A New Hope, basically beat for beat. I just was like, at least it was good at all, and it didn't actively suck to watch.
Yeah.
And that's how low my kind of bar of entry has become for Star Wars properties. That I remember the first time I saw Rogue One thinking, no one asked for this movie,
Yeah.
When they say we're going to make a Solo movie, it's like, sure, I'll go watch a Han Solo movie. I would go watch a movie about Boba Fett, I guess. But when they tell me we're going to make a movie about the people that are briefly mentioned in the text crawl of A New Hope who stole the plans for the Death Star, it's like, why? No one cares about that.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the theater thinking, like, is this the best one they've ever made? Because like Greg Fraser's the cinematographer. It's a gorgeous film to look at.
Yes.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I revisited Rogue One also this week.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I don't know if that's still my opinion, because I think actually Rogue One has more problems with it than I think Andor does.
It
But
does.
revisiting Andor, I'm just like, this thing is just crazy good. And again, it's like another thing where it's like, cool, Rogue One was barely a movie. Nobody asked for that movie.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
they tell us they're going to do a spin-off series about Cassian Andor, who's a character who it's like, what? I don't care about that. And I
yeah,
genuinely, when they announced this, was like, I don't want to see that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the fatigue of like the Obi-Wan show and the Book of Boba
yeah.
Fett show and the Mandalorian, and I just was like, I don't care. And when I started hearing that Andor was like as good as it is, I was like, well, I'll go watch it just to see.
Hmm.
And I am continuously blown away by this. But here's
Yeah.
the thing is, you and I don't fully agree on this. So
Yes. Yeah. Did
yeah,
you watch? Okay. I have many, many thoughts. I have many, many
okay,
opinions about this show. First of all, did you watch when Andor came out, did you watch it week to week or
I
did you
did.
binge it?
I
Okay.
watched it week to week.
I watched it week to week as well.
Yeah.
In the rewatch, this show is so much better when you binge it.
Yeah.
Just so much better. Like when I watched it week to week, every week I was like, "Oh my gosh, like please do something," because like there's not much happening.
Yeah.
And on the binge, it's like, okay, watching these three together, things are happening, things are building, they all work off of each other. It's just way better. So this show, a huge flaw for this show, this TV show, is that they don't really stand alone. Each episode does not really stand on its own.
Yeah.
And that's really that. And now with season 2, they're releasing 3 episodes a
At
week,
a
I think,
time.
which
Yeah.
I think is a much better idea.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now I can get like the whole picture of basically one episode, which is basically a movie. And then I can watch the rest of it. So on the rewatch, I really like that I could binge it. So I think that is a big problem, is because like most of the episode 2s of these, like, you know, of these sections are not really telling us much. They're not really progress, or they're not at least leaving us like wanting more. It's just
Mhm.
kind of like a continuation of the story, but as an episode of TV, it doesn't pull me in as
Yeah.
much based on the one single episode.
Yeah, I do remember on the first time I watched it thinking, especially in the first 3, and I'm already feeling this way about
Yeah.
season 2. I've
Yes.
already started watching season 2, and I already was kinda going like, "All right, come on, come on, come on.
Yeah.
Somebody do something." But I also know that, like, that's how I felt the first time I watched season
Yeah.
1, is so the structure of season 1, at least, and it seems like they're doing it again for season 2,
Yeah.
is it's it's these like packages of
Yeah.
stories. So the first 3 episodes are a story.
Yep.
And then that story kind of it has its own little arc, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And then the next 3 episodes are its own story and it has its own little packaged
Yep.
arc. Then there's like a 4 episode arc through from
Mhm.
7 to 10, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
And then they sort of finish it off. And 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are all kind of part of the same little
Yeah.
book. But like 7, 8, like 10 is really like the finale of that kind of sequence, and then they sort of cap it off with also a little cliffhanger at the end of 12 to finish the season. But I don't think this is a problem that the show has, because I think that this is episodic storytelling. Like I think every
Yeah.
TV show has episodes that are in between episodes that are like
Yeah.
this episode is a joiner episode between, like like there's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
like, there's still information about characters there's still development happening. It
Yeah.
just sometimes can move at a slower pace than maybe what we would be expecting from a show that has the Star Wars label attached to it. It's just sort of like,
Yeah.
I think when you watch The Mandalorian, every single episode of that show is its own self-contained
Yeah.
adventure. The
Yeah.
Mandalorian, for all intents and purposes, is like a procedural
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
each episode and I've always described The Mandalorian as like it feels like watching a video game where just like every episode is like the
A
main character
cutscene.
shows up in a
Yeah.
location. There's a cut scene where a character's like, I hear you're the Mandalorian. It's like, if you can go get this thing for me, I'll give you some information about this. And so then he has to like go and like do the task, and then he comes back and gets the information, and that's the episode. And
Yeah.
every episode is like or like when you think about Star Trek, it's like these are like self-contained little
Yep.
narratives.
Yep.
Each episode is the crew of the Enterprise is on a little adventure on a planet. Every once in a while on Star Trek, they'll do like a two-parter where
Mhm.
there'll be a story that takes two
Yeah.
episodes to tell. But most of the time, the episodes are self-contained. Andor is not like that. It's telling one big story over the course of a season, and it actually has these little like couplets or
Yeah.
triplets
Yeah.
of mini stories. And
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a problem. I think that it's just a matter of like you got to let them cook. Like you got to just know like the story's
Yeah.
not done yet,
Yeah.
Like
I think, and this is, I have, I have a lot of other problems. The other thing I think is important to know about me, so you were always a huge Star Wars fan.
yeah.
I was not. I
Mhm.
didn't love Star Wars like you and Kevin really loved Star Wars,
Yeah.
I kind of rebelled against it in a little weird way, and I don't know why. As I grew up, I started to appreciate it a lot more and more. And then when The Force Awakens came out, I loved The Force Awakens. I thought it was great. But I'm like, I really like Star Wars, but I don't have this huge passion for it where like I have standards that I feel like need to be set. But I do appreciate the series. I do like it. And there's an argument that like, oh, this show isn't a Star Wars show because it doesn't have lightsabers and this and that and the Force and all that. And I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
I don't think my overall opinion of the show is that it is extremely well made. And it's a very well made show. It's a very good show. Uh, I have personal problems that frustrate me
Yeah.
as someone who how I experience stories and how I like to watch stories. There are things that make me frustrated about this show that ultimately a lot of people probably understand and it doesn't bother them. Like I think a lot of my problems that I'm going to tell you, it probably won't bother you that much.
Mhm.
So these are kind of just more like my own personal frustrations with it. That every time I think about it, I'm like, why did what that doesn't make sense? Like, what are they doing? Or I get it and I just don't appreciate it, or I don't know if that was necessarily the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these,
Yeah, yeah, what are some of these? Because
so
this is
yeah,
because I was literally watching the show and I was like, I get like we talk it's
yeah,
part of
yeah,
the
yeah,
show is like people have their subjective
yes,
takes on films and their subjective experience with a thing. I always sell this show to people as like whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, you can recognize that this is a well-made show.
yes, yeah,
This show like supersedes the like need to be because I think like I kind of think only a Star Wars fan could enjoy Obi-Wan or
yeah, yeah.
or like the Book of Boba Fett or
Well,
it's
who could
some of
enjoy
the
the Book of Boba Fett? That
I don't think any.
sucks.
Yeah, geez. Like or like Ahsoka. Like I think you need to be like
Yeah,
a fan of the franchise to like latch into some of that stuff. But this is the thing where I'm like, whoever you are, there's good enough writing and acting and production design and cinematography going on,
yeah,
and storytelling going on that I think you can come to this and find an entry point. But so I'm
yeah,
interested in what are the parts that frustrate
yeah.
you.
So, and I agree. The production, first of all, the production design in this show is absolutely amazing.
It's just stunning.
It's
Oh my
like
goodness.
so top notch. The cinematography is amazing. Um, so there's so much that's good, and the acting, everything. There's so much that is good about this show.
I want to
I'm
say really quickly too that
yeah,
like that's what I think carried me through the first 3 episodes the first time I watched it
yeah,
is I tracked some of that stuff that I was like, this is kind of moving a little slow. But
yes,
what I trusted was the tone of it.
yeah,
And that's sort of how I felt about the first time I saw Rogue One too, is like Greg Fraser's cinematography set me at ease. Even though and
yeah,
on the
yeah,
rewatches of Rogue One, I'm like, there are problems with this movie. I can feel the studio notes
yeah,
in
yeah,
the movie, and I can feel sort of tonal problems. And there's a problem with how much narrative and character development they're trying to cram into a 2.5 hour long film. But
yeah,
what I trust about the film is like the tone. It just tells me
yeah,
I'm in good hands. And that's what I trusted with the first 3 episodes of Andor is like, oh, this just looks and feels like a more mature Star Wars show. It
yes,
just feels like it's being made by people who are who I trust. I
Yeah.
trust their craft at a technical
Yeah.
level, and
Yeah.
I trust them enough to let them cook. And
Yeah.
I'm glad I did, because I feel like the show pays off really
Yeah.
well down the line. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'll let you keep
I
going.
think no, you're
Yeah,
good, and I think that I've been trying to think of a comparison to what this show is. It's almost like a really, it's like a sports car,
yeah,
like a really really nice sports car. It's very well made. It's beautiful on the outside, but when you drive it, it's not fun. It's hard to drive, like as a daily driver. Like
mhm.
why would I? There's so many like it's rattles and it's just like hard. But when you get to use it, when you get to really open it up, it's amazing. And you overlook the problems because of how beautiful it is and what's good about it. Right.
Ooh, that's a good analogy. Yeah,
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that bother me, and I understand why people love it. And I get it. The biggest, the here are a few of the problems. I think the first one that comes to mind, and also the first rule of filmmaking in any sense for TV, movies, whatever, if you can keep people entertained, they will forgive so much.
yeah,
And I don't think you have to forgive a lot in this compared to many other shows, but that is the thing that this show does really well is it does keep you entertained. Whether you're
mhm,
watching the production design, the acting, whatever it is, it really can keep you entertained. So that's a very big positive. A big problem I have with the first 3 episodes, I mean, Andor as a character is pretty passive. And I know that
yeah,
this is part of his arc. This is part of how he becomes. He's kind of like he hates the empire, but he kind of wants to be a part of the rebellion, but not really. He just hates the empire.
mhm.
And like he's not really making many choices, but a lot of things kind of happen to him instead of him doing things to make them happen. Now, it's okay to have a passive protagonist. And in this case, it overall works because of where he ends up at the end, which is well, first of all, spoilers for Andor season 1. So, uh
Also, what's interesting, this TV show has the same thing going on that Rogue One had, which is like
yeah.
we sort of know the end of the movie. That which is
Yeah.
another reason why people were like, "Well, where will the tension be in Rogue One?" We
Yeah.
know they get the plans. We
Yeah.
know that they get the plans and they get them to Princess Leia. And I remember the first, so spoilers for Andor, spoilers for Rogue One. If you've never seen these things, you
Yeah.
should. You should watch Rogue One. If you're a Star Wars fan
Yeah.
at all,
Yeah.
you should see Rogue One.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I watched Rogue One thinking, how come I've never heard of any of these characters? Like it seems like our main characters would have run into them at some point. And then all of a sudden I
Yeah.
went, oh, they're probably all dead, aren't they? And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
they're all gonna die. And
Yeah.
then and I kind of love that about the movie. I think like
Yeah.
that's something that's so cool in a Star Wars movie to be like,
Yes.
all of our main characters are going to die by the end of
Yeah.
the movie. And that's so it just like hits so hard to
Yeah.
see what these small people are sacrificing.
Yeah.
And so we sort of have the same thing going on watching Andor. Like we know the end of Cassian Andor's story.
Yeah.
We know that the last chapter of Cassian Andor's story is the movie Rogue One. And
Yeah.
now we're going and watching how he became Captain Cassian Andor of the Rebel
Yeah.
Resistance.
Yeah.
You know, like how so it's an interesting sort of journey because like you said, yeah, like stuff's just sort of happening to him and he's sort of getting swept up in this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are I think that Cassian is far from the most interesting character in season 1 of Andor.
Oh
And I can
yeah.
get how you could
Yeah.
say that's a problem in a show called Andor.
Andor.
And I get that, but I still am like the
Yeah.
characters that I do like are so good that
They are.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And
So,
you're willing to overlook it, which is
yeah,
totally valid. There are certain times though that it gets frustrating with
yeah.
Cassian, and he's also it's a little hard to like him when he murders a few people. That's
That's our first introduction to him in Rogue One too. I
yeah,
remember
he
being in the
does.
theater, the very first thing that like and this is another thing that made me go like, "Oh, this is a different kind of Star Wars movie."
Yeah,
Is at the first time we see Cassian Andor in the movie Rogue One, he's meeting up with a guy and exchanging information, and this guy's also like the guy's like, like so nervous, and you can see that
yeah,
getting
yeah,
this information to Cassian is taking a huge emotional toll on this guy, and the guy's freaking out, and there's stormtroopers coming toward their location, and the guy's freaking out, and Cassian just shoots him, just kills
yeah,
him, and then
yeah,
climbs out of there. And I was like, whoa! But
yeah.
that's what I also love about Rogue One
Yes,
and
yeah,
Andor is it's all about the emotional cost to all of
Yeah.
these characters of
Oh, yeah.
participating in the rebellion,
Yeah.
and the idea that you have to be willing to morally compromise yourself in
Yes.
order to be successful at pushing
Yeah.
back against this
Yeah.
totalitarian power. But what we see with Cassian pretty early on is like, yeah, he's kind of a guy who is willing to do that.
Yeah.
And I think in this first step, I think that it's understandable the situation that these cops put him in.
Oh,
That like
yeah.
these cops
Yeah.
are sort of like, we're going to basically shake you down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't think he intends, he accidentally
No.
kills the first guy. And then the
Yes.
other guy, he's like, okay, well, I
Well, you
just
can
killed Han.
identify me, so I gotta kill you. Yeah.
Totally. And I've heard a lot of people say this about Cassian Andor, that they're like, he's such an unlikable protagonist. And I'm like, I get it. I think that
Yeah.
the fact that he's rough around the edges for me is really appealing, that he's not a squeaky clean
Yeah. Yeah.
guy, and that it shows uh, like a person
Yeah.
who also, like, that he doesn't have a lot of options, that he's desperate because of what
Yeah.
happens in this first episode, that he is from the jump a fugitive, and that he's
Yeah.
got to, yeah,
Yeah, it sets everything in motion.
yeah,
And I get why he did what he did.
yeah,
And throughout the series though, like the nice thing about Diego Luna is that Cassian is a very interesting character. At times he's really hard to like, but for some reason you do really like him. I mean, I
yeah,
do like him. He's got this like you understand where he's coming from, and he's also just kind of got this quality about him that you kind of the way that he is in the character, I don't know, he's just kind of likable, or he kind of brings you in, right?
yeah,
And he's a very good actor for this character.
yeah,
The thing that I really also don't like about these first 3 episodes, which I don't hear anybody talking about this,
mhm,
and I'm sure somebody has, but this bothers me the most about the first 3 episodes, and might bother me the most about the series as a whole. Cassian is going to look for his sister.
mhm,
He does not find her. She is never brought up again after the 4th episode.
yeah,
And it sets sorry, excuse me. It sets that's the beginning of the show.
yeah,
He is looking for his sister,
yeah,
and he finds a woman who's like, "Oh yeah, we've had somebody who's from Canary,
yeah,
right? Who supposedly everybody died." Like, and he wants to find his sister. And then he doesn't find her. He ends up killing these 2 cops. And then he has to run away. And then in the 4th episode, when or the 3rd episode, I can't remember which one it is, but he sees his mom again, and all she says is, "There were no survivors on Canary. Stop looking for your sister." She's never brought up again.
yeah,
And the thing that bothers me really bad is that's a really good motivation. Like,
mhm,
he wants to find his sister. He wants to get some sort of closure for his sister that he did love. We can tell that he had some sort of affection for her, right?
mhm.
And she is just a plot point.
Here's what I'm gonna say
Okay.
to that.
Okay.
I have heard this brought up before. I've heard
Okay.
this
Okay.
brought up.
Good.
I've
Good.
heard this said that, like, what happens to the whole storyline of Cassian looking for his sister?
Yes.
First of all, I will say it's drastically interrupted by, like you said, he's a passive protagonist. He has his goal. He has the
Yes.
thing that he wants. What he
Yeah.
wants is to A, have enough money to protect his mom and take care of his
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Ferrix, but also B, he's got the, like, Cassian is an adopted child. He's
Yes.
a child who
Yes.
had to leave his homeland. I actually kind of find some of these flashback scenes to his childhood is like too long. I think that
Yeah.
they could have
I
been
agree.
done in like one sequence in one episode maybe,
I
and they're
agree.
sort of like dragged out through the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But it does give us the background that, like, Cassian was part of this like kind of tribe on an abandoned mining planet,
Yeah.
and he gets found by his adopted mom and father, who are basically, they're kind of scavengers. They go around and they
Yeah.
look for like
Yeah.
crashed Imperial ships, and they scavenge parts that they can sell,
Mhm.
resell in the market, and they find this little kid and they adopt him. And
Yeah. Well, they
obviously
steal him.
they steal him because, but it's for his own good, because there's an
Yeah. Yeah.
Imperial ship
Yeah.
coming in, and they're like, they'll kill him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need, so
It's understandable why
yeah,
they do
yeah,
steal him. Yeah.
yeah. But basically his whole life has been, kind of stolen from him by, or put in motion. He's been kind of passive his whole life. Like, he just was
Yeah. Yeah.
taken by these other people against his will, forced to have a new family, even though they've been very good to him. The reason why they had to take him is because if they left him, the Empire would have killed them
Mhm.
or killed him, but he still wants to find his sister. What I will say about this to people who go like, what happened to that plot point, is like, his search, when we meet Cassian Andor, that's the journey he's on. He's
Yeah.
not on a journey to become a Rebel
Oh no.
Alliance captain or to be a Rebel fighter. He just wants to find his sister. And for most of the show, Cassian Andor is still just like kind of looking out for what he wants. And
Yeah.
he's willing to go along with certain things to get money and to get, but I still think that he has that goal. What I'll say is season 2, we're
Yeah.
in season 2. I will be shocked if Tony Gilroy and company don't resolve this storyline in season 2. I
Yes.
don't think that the writers have abandoned the Cassian looking for his sister
Yes.
story. I think it's still going to be resolved.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the only saving grace for this one as well, is
Yeah.
that they could still bring it back.
Yeah.
And we do know that season 2 will be the end of the show, which I think
Of
is a
course.
good idea. I think it's
Yeah.
great. Let's just end things. It's okay to end things after 2 or 3 seasons.
Yep.
And I do hope that they bring it back. So maybe it will get resolved, but it's never hinted at again.
Yeah.
So I hope that they do. And if they don't, that's a big problem for me.
But I would
And
say this too, like the whole like I got to find my sister thing gets hijacked by kind of a pretty big problem.
yeah,
Like
I get
him,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
him killing these cops and then having this, first of all, this like corporate security task force
Yeah.
on his tail is one problem. But
Yeah.
then once it gets up the chain of command to the empire and the
Yeah, yeah.
entire empire is coming for him and his
Yeah.
family, and then he gets involved with this like robbery on Aldani and then
Yeah.
getting put into this prison camp, which is
Yeah.
not something he planned on, and having to deal with that. Like the stuff that happens to him, it's not like Cassian the character just forgets that his sister's out there
Yeah.
somewhere.
He's
It's
got
that
bigger
a
problems.
whole bunch of crap happens that he's like,
Yeah.
I got to deal with this first
Yeah.
before I can even reasonably think about, and also like I think that the journey of season 1 is him realizing maybe there are just bigger things going on in this galaxy than
Yeah.
me and my sister.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think also though it would have been nice to continue, like, because after the mom says it, there's no mention or anything. And if it was that important to him, I feel like he could have mentioned it one more time or had a
Sure.
callback one more time. That would have made it like, okay, they are going to resolve this at some point.
Mhm.
But right now it just feels like it's resolved because it's like it's done. But again, we'll see in season 2. Hopefully it is, and I
would
think
be
they
shocked.
will.
I would be shocked if it's
Yeah.
not resolved in season 2.
Yeah.
I would be
Yeah.
absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big problem with the first 3 episodes. And a lot of so in the next 3 episodes, which is the heist, it's the same problems. Like they a big problem throughout the entire series is that they take a lot of I mean, a lot of people saying it's boring, and I think they're valid if they don't. If you're looking for more of the traditional Star Wars, I get it, and there are definitely times that I was like, this is boring for me. But they are fleshing out the characters. They're doing all these things, so I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. That's just how the show is paced, and it's pretty evenly paced. So
To me, the second trilogy is like episodes 4 through 6 are in Andor. It's
yeah,
about sort of introducing us to the rebellion, to
yes,
at least
yes,
Luthen's rebellion.
yeah,
So what we find out in Andor too is that like at this point in the story, the rebellion exists in factions.
yeah,
The rebellion, as we come to know it in George Lucas's Star Wars, is one unified force.
yeah,
They're a rebel alliance, they call
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And the rebel alliance it's actually a force that has money and that has like a home base and
yes,
has a fleet and a military and has actual power.
yeah,
In this universe, it's very fragmented.
yeah.
So Luthen Riel, who is maybe one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars.
He is amazing.
I love this character so much.
Yeah,
At the end of the first trilogy of episodes in Andor, we get introduced to Luthen Riel, who shows up on Ferrix he's interested in Cassian Andor.
yeah,
And he's there ostensibly to buy something that Cassian stole. But the real reason he's there is he sees potential in
yeah,
Cassian, because
yeah,
Luthen's whole thing is that he has kind of a shadow network of
yeah,
operatives throughout the galaxy. And it's not known to us how many people, Luthen actually works with. It seems like a pretty small team, but it could be a lot bigger than we know. He could have
Yeah.
like up to like a couple hundred people spread out in different places,
Yeah.
but we don't actually know. It seems like it could be as small as 10 and as big as, a few
Yeah.
hundred.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about Luthen is even we the audience
Yeah.
don't, he plays everything very close to the chest.
Yep.
But we sort of get introduced to like Luthen's people who they've been for months now planning
Yeah.
this heist on uh an imperial garrison that has you know uh a huge the quarterly payroll for an
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
imperial sector,
Yeah.
and they're going to steal all of that money just to sort of kind of make some noise and make the empire notice them. and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this, again, like you said, it's like if people need lightsabers and the force to stay interested, I get it. But
Yeah.
for me, it's like what I love about Andor is it's just great writing and
Yeah.
dialogue. And I love listening to these people talk about
Yes.
their personal investment in the cause and
Yeah.
also like what it's cost. And I love seeing I love the stakes of this show. I love
Yeah.
how much you feel the fear of all of these
Yeah.
characters. Like that
Yeah.
when they get introduced to the idea that there's a new person joining the heist, they're like, we can't we go in 3 days. We've been planning this for months and months and months. You can't
Yeah.
introduce new people that we don't know to
Yeah.
this because it could jeopardize we don't know who this is. It could
Yeah.
jeopardize the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I love how seriously everyone takes this. I
Yes.
love that for everyone it's kind of like
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and you get all these different types of people. You get
Mhm.
a former stormtrooper, you get a person who the Empire killed her family. You get someone who says, I mean, he says that his brother was killed by the Empire, but he's really
Mhm.
just in it for himself to get his own gain. And then you get a radical, or I don't even know what you call him. He's an idealist,
He's
right?
kind of
Who
like
wants to,
like a true revolutionary who's like
yes,
writing a
yes,
manifesto and yeah,
yep.
yeah.
He
Mhm.
really wants it for yeah, he really really believes it in his core, and so it's just like the rebellion is getting whoever they can. They're getting them all together, which is really really good. The problem that I have, and you said it, you love listening to these people talk and like tell their stories and why they feel the way that they feel, and it's very good. The way that they write it is entertaining, which is good. The problem that I have with a lot of these scenes in episodes 4 through 7 is that they're telling many of the scenes are telling us stuff that we already know. So the scene between Mon Mothma and oh god, I forgot his name, the guy who handles her money, or she's trying to have him handle his money. They
Yeah,
have a long scene where they're talking about everything that we already know. And
which
I'm like,
is what?
which is she needs help with moving her money around because the
Yeah.
Empire is worried, or
Mhm.
they're starting to look at her and she needs to fly under the radar, right?
Mhm.
And they have a whole conversation about it. And I was like, that whole conversation told me nothing that I didn't already know. Now, it's so well played, it's so well shot, it's so well acted that, and I mean, you get like little bits of information, but it takes a long time to get there. And I think
When sorry, but when do we find out that information if not then? Because in my mind, it's like I need that scene to know that Mon Mothma's having a problem with money.
no,
Like,
she has already said that she talked to Luthen
right.
and she's like, there's $400,000 that is unaccounted for, or I need to account for, or they're going to look at me, right? She has that whole scene with him.
That's right. When yeah, she goes, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so all the information is it's basically there. And so again, this is more of a nitpick. And this
Yeah.
is also again like this doesn't bother me that much in the
Mhm.
sense that it's so well acted and so well shot that it's like it still is entertaining, and you do bring in a new character who has to understand what's going on. But usually it's kind of like I would rather kind of like to have learned more about the new guy rather than what's going on with Mon Mothma, because I already know what's going on with her. If she can kind of say some, if they could, the conversation could be more about him, her feeling him out more, which she kind of does. I mean,
Yeah.
that does kind of happen. But if I could find out more about him, especially because in season 2, he comes back in, Right.
Yeah, are you talking about the scene when they're sort of at a dinner party
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
she's
Yeah. Yeah.
see what I like about this scene, because I get it that there's information that's being reiterated. But
Yes.
what I like about this scene is it shows and this is what I love about the show, again, is like when I talk about stakes, it's like I feel in this scene the tension of
Yeah.
how careful Mon Mothma has to be
Yeah.
with who she dares to invite into the
Yes.
inner circle of what she's actually doing. Because Mon
Yeah.
Mothma is one of Luthen's maybe most valuable assets.
Right.
She's an asset that Luthen has, who's a senator,
Yeah.
and the Senate knows that Mon Mothma is not afraid to push back on the Empire and some of their policies when it comes to politics, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to, but like the Senate doesn't know that she's a full on rebel who is
Right.
helping to fund
Right.
rebel activity. If they did know that, they'd kill her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
fact that you can feel that she knows the stakes of what she's gotten herself into, that not her husband doesn't know. She knows that the guy who drives her
Right.
is a
Right.
spy. She
Right.
knows that she is surrounded by unfriendly ears and
Yes.
eyes at all times, and she has to keep I love the element in this show of, like, keeping up the performance, the people who sort
Yes.
of live
Yeah.
in the imperial society, and I love that this scene it's an old friend of hers
Yeah.
who he's kind of telling her in his own way, because he's got to
Yeah.
be careful too.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, my politics might be a little bit
Yeah.
progressive for your
Yeah.
taste. And she's
Which
like,
is funny.
I might surprise you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't know what my politics are. And they're both kind of feeling each other out. Maybe
Mhm.
there is a little bit of repetition about like the money problems and
Yeah.
but this is her deciding to trust this guy.
Right.
And as we're finding out in season 2, this winds up being a kind of costly decision. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's also like the delicate dance that they have to do to be like this $400,000 discrepancy needs to be
Yeah.
figured out somehow. We've got to figure out a way to wash this money and make it look clean, or we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And she gets this guy involved because she's desperate, even though Luthen was like, I don't want any people involved who I can't control. Here we are in season 2, we're already seeing, even though this guy seemed like he could be trusted,
Yeah.
it's already a problem.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's already like saying stuff like, I don't like that I'm not getting
Yeah.
I'm doing all this work for you, but you're not helping me out. And
Yeah.
now, I'm not going to be surprised if Luthen kills this guy.
Right. Right.
Because it's just sort of like that's the kind of problem the guy is making himself to
Mhm.
be. But I don't know. I like all of the
Yeah.
I like that this show takes its time and shows the delicate dance that Luthen is doing. I also even like that the whole Andor piece of Luthen's design for most of the season is thought of as a mistake. It's
Yeah.
like he went after Andor on Ferrix, he saw something there and he took a gamble. He figured that the Aldani heist needed another person.
Yeah.
He found this guy who had broken into an Imperial ship and stolen this really,
Mhm.
valuable piece of Imperial hardware, and he's like, that might be my guy. A guy who has the balls to go and do something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Maybe he can help out with my thing. It winds up being a problem because it's what gets the Empire kind of on his trail is the
Yeah.
fact that he does this move with Andor. And I kind of like that Luthen is sort of always problem solving and correcting as he
Right.
goes. And
Right.
I like that this show shows the messiness of the
Yeah. Of
rebellion
the
and
rebellion,
yeah.
trying to get it
Mhm.
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Mhm.
I totally agree. And this isn't just isolated to this one scene.
Yeah.
There are definitely other scenes that take a long time, again, reiterating information that we already know.
Mhm.
And it's kind of this is more of a nitpick, but it is acted so well and it's written so well that it kind of goes unnoticed in some ways. But it just throughout, like Mon Mothma kind of has a lot of conversations where she reiterates the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
she definitely does repeat several times that she's having an issue with funding and
yeah,
figuring that out. And yeah.
and yeah, and so it's just kind of like that. I get the boring part of people's arguments because when you reiterate something that we already know, it's like, why are you telling me this again?
Mhm.
That's when it gets kind of annoying for me. Like I know that. Please give me some more information. And not that they just reiterate it, they explain it again.
Mhm.
Right? Like when they explain the same thing over and over, it's like you've already explained it. Can you just find a way to reference it and then move on and give me some more information?
Yeah.
So, but that's a nitpick. The heist for this heist is great, by the way.
I love this sequence.
Yeah,
There's several sequences in this show like the heist where
yeah,
they do such a good job of building up the tension for it in the
yep,
previous episodes. That's
yes,
why I love these the first 3 episodes, which for a lot of people is the most boring ones. On a
yeah,
rewatch, I
yeah.
think it goes a lot better knowing more about it, but it's like the big buildup is Cyril Karn, who's another one of my favorite characters on this entire show.
Okay,
His
we got to talk about
We
him
gotta
then.
talk about
Okay,
Cyril Karn.
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but his big Cyril Karn is this I think he's just such a great villain because he's this guy who you're like, why are you doing this? Why do you
Yeah,
care about the Empire? The
yeah,
Empire doesn't care. But Cyril Karn's basically like a rent-a-cop. He's not even a
yeah.
real
No.
imperial officer or like he's not a stormtrooper. He's not like he's just works for a corporate security task force, but
Mhm.
he wants to be somebody. He
Yeah,
wants to be
yeah,
important. And he also believes in the cause of the Empire. He thinks that
yeah,
the Empire is the arm of justice and order in the world,
yeah,
mistakenly, but he buys into the kind of indoctrination of the Empire. And I actually think that 1, 2, and 3 are more his story than anyone else's
yeah,
because it's sort of like his chance to prove himself. And he's hot on the trail of this guy who killed 2 security officers, and
yeah,
he kind of puts together this whole plan to go to Ferrix and catch this guy, and in his mind this is going to get the attention of the Empire
yeah,
and launch him into the ranks and make him an imperial officer, and then he'll really be somebody. And the whole thing gets bungled and it
yeah,
goes terribly wrong, but it's sort of that's the tension of that threesome. But they do such a nice job of like in the next 3 with the heist on Aldani, they do such a good job from the jump of building the stakes of what's riding on this thing that they've been that like
yeah,
that kind of everything Luthen's been doing
yeah,
hinges on this. That like if
yeah,
this does not go well, they're sort of back to square one. That there's
yeah.
so many different pieces that he's been putting in play to make sure that they can pull this heist off.
Right.
And so it's so you like by the time we get to episode 6 where the heist happens, we're so like the stakes are so well built in for us.
Yeah,
And then the same thing happens in the whole prison sequence where it's
yeah,
like we have such a well built in kind of concept
yeah,
of the stakes of
yeah,
this world. And I think every time we do the climactic sequence, it's like there's such a nice payoff. And yeah, this heist
yeah,
is awesome.
yeah.
Like this
It
whole sequence is awesome.
Yeah, it is fun. It is it's well done because the stakes are raised and you know what's going on, and it is nice because they have all the ISB and you get that they're starting to get on Luthen's case like the and and
Yeah.
this is where anyway, it's all done really really well. Back to Cyril Karn
Yeah.
though.
So you don't like Cyril Karn?
Well, I know I love him as a character in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I really I knew exactly who he was. I loved his introduction where he's like, "Oh, did you change your uniform?" He's like, "Oh, it's just some light tailoring."
I
Right. And
love
that
that.
keeps coming up.
I love
Like
it.
he plays it very, very well. I know who he is. After the first 3 episodes, how am I supposed to feel about this person? And what is he supposed to do? Because after the first 3 episodes, we keep coming back to him and his mom, and he's eating cereal, which is really weird that Star Wars has cereal. I don't know why that just there's another thing in season 2 that I'm like, they have that too? Like, what?
What was it? Fondue?
No. Oh, they do have fondue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they have
But it
fondue.
was the corporate like hype videos that they have that
Oh
like
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, and they
Yeah,
projector. I'm
yeah,
like, I've never seen this in anything. Why do we need to have it? Why do we need to
yeah.
have cereal? And it's a weird thing, but it's not a big deal. But
I
I
think there's
think
something about the tone of Andor as a show where it's the most grounded tone of
it is.
any
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's and maybe that's one of the reasons why a lot of Star Wars faithful don't like it is they're like it's
Yes.
supposed
Yeah.
to be more heightened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Andor has things like
Yeah.
a guy who lives with his mom and eats cereal and is like, "Oh, I hate my mom."
Yeah.
And that feels weird. But that's
Yeah.
what I love about I actually love that because I'm like, I
Yeah.
love that we get to see what a loser Cyril Karn is and
Yeah.
because to me, so like I think here's another just overall big thing of like why I love Andor,
Yeah.
and it might be a thing that you and I differ on that is sort of a
Mhm.
fundamental like, well, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
And it's that like to me, Andor is not about Star Wars. To me, Andor
Right.
is very much so a very like prescient, relevant
Yeah.
socio-political commentary on the current reality of our socio-political
Right.
like circumstances. Like I
Right.
believe that Tony Gilroy is making a show about what it looks like to resist a totalitarian takeover. And
Mhm.
I believe that we are in the throes of a totalitarian, authoritarian oligarchy takeover that is actually very scary, where like
Mhm.
due process and human rights and constitutional rights are being erased, and where separations of power is not being you know um honored,
Right.
and habeas
Right.
corpus is being thrown out the window. And I think it's very scary. And
Mhm.
so this show to me is all about what it looks like for people to try to resist something like that that's so much bigger
Mhm.
than them incomprehensibly. And Cyril Karn is a character who, in the course of dealing with something like our current socio-political
Mhm.
reality, you also every once in a while meet people like Cyril Karn who you're like, what's in it for you? Why are
Yeah.
you so
Yeah.
bought in on helping the regime? The regime doesn't care about you. The
Right.
regime looks like there's nothing, and it's a puzzle because you have to kind of like look at this character and go, why are you so bought in? The
Yeah.
Empire doesn't care about you. You're
Yeah.
way too far down on the ranks to he probably has no even concept of what Emperor Palpatine even looks like. He has
Yeah.
no idea that there are people who can shoot lightning out of their hands. He doesn't know
Yeah.
anything like that.
Right.
He's just decided to believe in it.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
just, and I think that that is a really important part of this show when you're talking about these kinds of battling ideologies is
Right.
you're going to have to deal with people who have decided whether it makes sense or not to believe in this thing.
Yeah.
And Cyril Karn, and I think his relationship with Deidre Miro is what he sees in Deidre is she's
Right.
like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's a
He
true believer. Yeah.
Yeah, he very much wants to be her.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing, like, I get everything you said, but then after episode 3, we keep following him, and then in the very last episode, he saves Deidre, and they're, like, looking at each other and loving, like, she's, like, seems to fall in love with him, and I'm like, am I supposed to root for that? Like, because then in season 2, they're spoiler, they're together, and like she meets his mom, and they're like, it's like a funny scene, but it's also like, what is the like? I get seeing different sides of things, but like, how am I supposed to feel about this person
I
and
have a, I
these
have a,
people?
I have a fan theory,
Okay,
which
go
is
for it.
that I actually think that Dedra Miro and Cyril are going to wind up being two of the biggest assets to the rebellion in the
They
show.
could be, and that's what I wonder as well. I have thought that because so for right now, I'm just very confused. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
and
what is it?
it's gonna be hard to watch because
Yeah,
Dedra's bad.
she is.
Like she's a bad person
What
who
she
does
did to Bix
bad.
was horrible.
Yeah, what they do to Bix is terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
again, the show goes to places too that you're not used to seeing in like a Star Wars
Yes.
property. Like
Yeah.
the thing that happens to Bix is like it's so nightmarish and
Yeah.
awful. And Dedra seems to delight in torturing
Yeah.
enemies of the Empire and dissidents. And but the reason, so like the show Andor reminds me a lot of The Handmaid's Tale, because The
Mm.
Handmaid's Tale is one of those shows. It's about a totalitarian takeover, an
Yeah. Yeah.
authoritarian, and it's about a resistance movement. But it also has this character named Serena Waterford, who I think is one of my most detested TV
Uh-huh.
villains of all
Right.
time, and she's also the woman who helped create Gilead, this authoritarian state.
Right.
But what the show's been doing over the last few seasons is showing the way that Serena kind of becomes disillusioned with her faith
Mhm.
in Gilead and starts to sort of work against it. I have not allowed this show to sell me on rooting for Serena. I'm like, I will never root for Serena. She's bad.
Yeah.
I don't like her.
Yeah.
But I do like the way that the show is showing that like it's sometimes the most devoted believers who can become the
Right.
most useful assets in overthrowing the thing. And I think I don't think that this show wants us to like Cyril and Dedra. Like, I don't think we have to be like rooting for them or anything,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is showing that these are two people who there are a lot of people in the Empire who are just like slimy opportunists, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name? Sam Mendelsohn's character from Rogue One. He's just
Yeah.
a guy who just wants status and power. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who are Imperial officers or people who are in the ISB who just, like he has the line in Rogue One where he's like, "We stand here amidst my accomplishment," and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
he just wants status and power and money.
Right.
And I think that what sets Dedra and Cyril apart is that they actually believe in what they're doing, and I think that's what's going to make them fall out of love with the Empire, is that
Right.
they're
Right.
surrounded by kind of soulless opportunists who don't actually care about anything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when they realize that they're the only two ones who actually seem to care about any of this,
Right.
either he's gonna wind up betraying her or they're gonna wind up just defecting together or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I could very easily see the show going that way. I don't know if it will, but I think there's a reason why this is such
Yeah.
a main storyline of the
Yeah.
show.
I
Yeah,
think you're right, and
yeah,
hopefully it does get figured out. So
yeah,
we'll see. But it is a weird ending for their story because it's like
sure.
they get together and it's like telling us like, "Oh my goodness, isn't this awesome?" And I'm like, "This is so weird."
Yeah.
Like every time he's on and every time she like I could tell that there's an attraction between the two. And so I'm like, "Why am I supposed to be?" So it will be interesting to see where it goes, but that's another frustrating part. Like, and maybe that's because I don't even know. But
What I think is fascinating about Daedra and Cyril is that they're humans. That like they
yeah,
are like
yeah,
that they're not just I think that we so often in Star Wars especially, we just kind of see anyone who's in the Empire as just like evil. Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
that person has been taken over by the dark side of the Force. Star Wars
Right.
tends to be so kind of
Yeah,
black and white in its
black and white.
morality
Yep.
that
Yep.
it's the good and the bad, the light and the dark. And I think that while Dedra is a bad person who does bad things, and I think Cyril is too, it's because what they think about themselves is, "I'm a hero. I'm a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
person."
Yeah.
I think that weirdly, it's like Emperor Palpatine seems to know and revel in the fact that he's evil, and a lot of Star Wars villains kinda seem to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stormtroopers are just kind of ignorant. They just are sort
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
grunts who take orders, and there's a lot of people in the Empire who are that. I think it's really interesting to have these characters who it's like, they're smart, they're capable, and they actually really believe in this. They don't believe that they're
Right.
bad. They don't believe that they're like
Yeah. They're the hero of their own story.
right.
Yeah.
Deidre and Cyril believe that they are going to bring order and balance and safety and
Right.
justice to the galaxy. And they believe in using any and all means to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them really interesting characters, is that it's like it sort of humanizes the Empire in that way. Not to say that we should like them or that we
Right.
should be
Right.
rooting for them, but that we can see the complexity of,
Right.
because I do think again that the show is about our actual world, and there are
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who are doing what they're doing right now not because they're just bad, but because they actually think this is the way
Right.
to make a better, brighter future.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the way.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the next basically net well uh this has bothered me less and less, but Andor goes to some planet. I can't remember what planet he's on. It's like a
Yeah.
luxury planet, and he's just like hanging out.
Yeah.
He gets
Yeah,
he
after he takes his cut of
yeah. Oh
the Aldani loot,
yeah. Which
he he
he totally kills cousin.
which
Uh
also I think this is like when people go like, "Oh, Andor's not a very," I'm like, "No, this is a moment of like really great character for him." Because what
right.
happens is he finds out this guy that was part of the Aldani heist wants to just take the money and run.
Yeah.
And when as soon as he finds that out, he just kills the guy because he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you can't be trusted." And then he says, "I just want what I was promised, just my cut,
Yeah.
and I'll leave you the rest." There's
Yeah.
millions. There's like 40 million credits in there, and I think he was promised
No, it's like 100 million.
like 100, yeah, and I think he was promised like a couple 100,000, and he's like, "I just want my couple
Yeah.
100,000,"
Yeah.
and that's all he takes.
Yeah.
And
And this one on this rewatch, I got that more that like he is choosing a side.
yeah,
The cousin character, he is not committed. He's in it for
yeah,
himself. And Andor's been on the fence every time. Not really on the fence, but really like not wanting to commit to the side of the rebels. And that's where he does commit, but he also is like, I don't want to be a part of it because we don't know who we're dealing with. But it comes so quickly and kind of out of nowhere. I think it just happens so fast. It's a little jarring the first time.
See, and
Second
I would
time, you get it, and I
yeah.
understand it more, and it is very much a part of his arc as a character. So,
And I would say that I still don't think he has chosen to
no,
join the
he
side of the
hasn't,
rebellion.
but
I'd say
it
that
makes him
yeah,
frustrated that
yeah,
someone is so they're just in it for themselves.
right.
So it's his step towards making that choice. Yeah.
Well, I think this is also showing us the kind of character that Marva and his father raised him with. That even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
Cassian is willing to steal from rich people, he's willing to steal from the Empire. He's not a scoundrel.
Yeah.
He's not just
He's
like a bad guy.
yeah.
So like all he says here is like, I was promised a few 100,000 credits. I'm just taking what I was promised and then
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And it shows that Cassian has character.
Right.
And
Right.
but I still don't think he's saying I'm a rebel.
No, I
It's
agree. Yeah.
what Cassian still believes, and I love the scene with him and his mom because he still believes we can take the money and we can just go find somewhere and just live and we can just be
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
And what she tries to tell him in there, and I love the scene that they have together on Ferrex, is
Right.
she's
Right.
like, because she kind of says, I'm too old to keep running from these
Yeah.
people. I probably shouldn't have been running from them my whole life anyway.
Yeah.
And what she kind of tries to tell him is like, there's no running from this. The empire's
Right.
too big. They're going to find you anywhere you go. The evil that is spreading across the galaxy from the empire is too big and too far reaching to just, you
Right.
can't, it'd be kind of like the equivalent of someone being like, I'm just going to move to New Zealand. I'm not going to
Yeah.
deal with this. I'm
Yeah.
just going to, but it's like, if you ignore it, something this big, it's going to
Right.
find you. And I
Right.
think what's cool about this next storyline is Cassian tries to just sort of cut and
Yeah.
run and
Yeah.
go, and it doesn't work out because the empire finds him
Right.
in a way that
Well,
he totally doesn't expect, in a
yeah.
way that no one could have prepared for, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just walking, and basically what the Empire is trying to do is get prisoners so that they can continue to make them build their stuff, right? Make them build their
Death Star.
weapons and everything so that they
Yeah.
can just so they're overreach. They're trying to they're giving sentences to people who don't deserve them.
And they've also significantly ramped up this activity in the wake of Aldani.
Hmm.
So this is
It was
another
really
thing.
his own fault. And
Yeah, and this is also another thing that I love this whole aspect of like when they do Aldani and Mon Mothma goes to see Luthen and she's like, "Was this you?" And he
yeah,
denies it. He says no, but then she's like, "You did do this, didn't you?" And she's like, "You
yeah,
know that they're going to
yeah,
they're like people are going to die because of this."
yeah,
And Luthen's response is, "We need to provoke them. We
yeah,
need to get the
yeah,
Empire to overreact and because as long as we allow them to sort of move slowly, they can
yeah,
choke us out one thing at a
yeah,
one little,
yeah,
but if we can provoke them to do something big, and what happens is all of this legislation comes in, and I
yeah,
love that Didra Miro sees this too, that she's like, this is exactly what they want. They want us to
yeah,
overreact. They want us
yeah,
to be the monsters in their story.
right,
They want us to be the bad guys so that they can justify doing more acts of rebellion and or
yeah,
in her mind, terrorism, so that they can
right,
justify doing more terrorism. But like that's what I think that's such an interesting thing that it's like because of Aldani, the Empire starts ramping up, arresting random people
yeah,
and not
yeah.
allowing, and that's
Yeah,
what
and
why yeah.
this ultimately, yeah, it leads to building the rebellion, which is what Luthen wanted.
Luthen
Which
wants the Empire to kind of take their
yeah,
mask off and show everyone how
yeah.
evil they are.
He
Yeah.
wants to push them to do things that they shouldn't be doing to let people know like this and that's the theme throughout the rest of the series, even into season 2 is that people need to know about this. They keep saying that throughout the rest of the series.
Yeah.
And that is what it's doing. It's creating a bigger rebellion because they are frustrated with how they're being treated. So that I mean that's good and when he gets picked up again the first time I watched it I was like that's so dumb. It's just like an accident. But I mean it is and it ultimately works.
It's
Um
intended to be
it
frustrating.
is. Yeah,
Like
it
it is
is.
supposed to
Yeah.
be like the exact response you're supposed to have is, "Are you kidding me? He didn't
Yeah,
even
like
do
that's
anything."
stupid. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's another thing that this show does so well is it makes me have a disdain for the Empire that I've never had before.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, the Empire's just sort of like they're just bad guys. Like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
just bad guys who do bad things. I mean,
Yeah.
the first
Mustache
real
twirling. Yeah.
yeah, like the first thing that we ever see them do in A New Hope is they blow up an entire planet in front of Leia, her
Yeah.
whole home planet. They're like, "We're gonna
Yeah.
make you stand here and
Yeah.
watch while we blow up your whole planet." And I don't think even that movie does a good job of letting us feel the actual weight of that
Yeah.
moment and the
Yeah.
stakes of what they've just done. And I feel like in the series Andor and in Rogue One, we get so much more of a sense of the wanton cruelty
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the Empire. Like when you really ask the question, like, what is so bad about I know that Emperor Palpatine is an evil old man who shoots lightning out of his hands, but
Yeah.
if the Empire is like ultimately bringing stability to the
Right.
galaxy and giving people kind of wealth and giving people jobs, are they really that bad? And I think you need to see stuff like this where it's just
Right.
like Cassian's just minding his own business and an Imperial guard just decides we're going to arrest you and put you in a
Yeah.
work camp.
Yep.
And I think that you're supposed to have the reaction, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I hate
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
yeah, like the first time I saw it, I hated it. I hated it this time, but in a good way, in a way where like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be awful. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be yeah.
Yeah. And then these next 4 episodes are the prison break episodes, where he's
Andy
in
Serkis is
prison.
amazing in
He
this
is.
sequence.
I love, and Andor is much more active in
Yeah.
this sequence. He's very, very active. He is doing things to actively get out of prison. He is making things happen. He is trying, he is helping Andy Serkis to see what's going on. I like how it all unfolds. It's a great sequence of episodes, and it pays off really, really well with everybody getting out. The thing that frustrates me, first of all, is that what happens to Andy Serkis? I really hope
Yeah.
he comes back, because he's just like, I can't swim. And then he goes and it's like, what? Like, I want more Andy Serkis. Like, that's so hopefully he comes back. He very well could, but also it's just kind of a weird way to just leave that character.
So
If that's the end.
as I said, I would what I said earlier, I'd be shocked if the sister storyline
Right,
is not
right.
resolved, and I stand by that. And I think that there's a possibility that we're going to see
Yeah. Yeah.
more interesting twists from Deidre
Mhm.
and Cyril.
Yeah.
This character though, this Andy Serkis character, I'm not so sure that we are going to see him again. And
Interesting. Okay.
here's the thing is I think that this is another kind of really intentional, hard-hitting thing, and it's a thing that I really like about this show. It's a
Yeah.
thing that I liked about Rogue One, that it's like people are gonna die.
Yeah.
People are going to
Yeah.
be sacrificed for the cause. And what I love about the whole one way out storyline in this
Yeah.
prison is again, it's showing the actual level of depravity in the Empire and the
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
rotten moral core at the center of this thing. That even
Right.
if some people, I love that constantly throughout this show we're contrasting images of the aristocracy,
Mm.
eating at parties and wearing fine clothes and stuff, and
Yeah.
Mon
Yeah.
Mothma, trying to play up with the uppity ups, and you know showing what's
Yeah.
going on with other people in the galaxy. And during this whole sequence in the prison, when we keep going back, like when the whole first episode, when it's settling in on Cassian Andor, where he is and what's happened to him, that when it just takes him so long to be like, I'm just a tourist. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like
He's just
I did nothing. And
yeah.
this is really where Cassian gets radicalized, like more than
Yeah.
anywhere else in the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
show.
yeah. Yeah.
This is where Cassian becomes a I'm in.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
in on the rebel cause, because when he sees like there's no avoiding this, and especially when he gets out and finds out your mom's dead. Like
Yeah.
it was all
Yeah.
for nothing. Like you were trying to save up money, like and
Yeah.
they took
Yeah.
away your last chance to see your mom.
Yeah.
They put you in a prison for no reason to build weapons for them. And
Yeah.
but like part of this whole prison escape sequence is like most of the escapees don't make it. Like,
Yeah.
as far as we know, two of the like Cassian has that whole thing with the other guy. I think his name's like Melshi or
Something like that. Yeah.
and which, by the way, I completely didn't know that this guy's in Rogue One. He's like a
Oh,
big character in Rogue One, and when I
I didn't
watched for
know
Rogue
that
One,
either.
I was like, holy crap, that's the guy. So when they at the end of Rogue One, when they go to Scarif, and there's like a small band of rebels who
Yeah.
decide to go with them, because the whole Rebel Alliance is like, we're disbanded. If there's a weapon like that, we don't have any way to
Yeah.
this is the end of the rebellion. But a small group's like, we're going to go with you and we're going to get those plans. He's one of the guys in that small group, and then he becomes like
Ah,
a big character in the final act of Rogue
nice.
One. And I was
Nice.
like, oh, it's the guy from the prison. And so I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
that was cool that they brought him into Andor.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, that's funny. I never realized that, which is cool.
yeah, I
And
had
this all makes sense. This is a very strong sequence with the prison break. Andy Serkis aside, we'll see. I mean, and if this is the last time that we see him, I would have kind of liked to have seen him. This is morbid, but would have kind of liked to see him in the water and just like there, like, and he can't swim, so it's
To
implied that he actually dies. But
and this is a matter of subjective taste,
it
but,
is,
like, to me, it's like that episode, the One Way Out episode, by the way, episode 10 of when this happens
Yeah.
is one of my favorite episodes of
Oh, it's
television
amazing.
ever.
It's
It
awesome.
has, at the end of
So
it
good.
has a speech from Luthen that is, I think, one of the best speeches ever written,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's just such an incredible speech
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end of this
Yeah.
episode. And also, or that's in episode 9 maybe, or I can't remember, but I think it's episode 10. But yeah, when these guys stage that these prisoners find out that the Empire is not letting them out of the prison, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
all decide, okay, cool. I love what Andy Serkis says to the guys in the morning too, because Andy Serkis again was a guy who had made a decision
Yeah.
to believe that they were going to
Yeah.
honor their word and let him out. So he decided to just work hard, keep
Yep.
his head down, and watching him become radicalized and
Yeah.
realize,
Feels he's
oh,
betrayed and
yeah. And I love what he says at the beginning of the day where he says, "In my mind, I'm already dead. As far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned, I'm already dead. Like, you know, if they're gonna kill me here or kill
Yeah.
me, you know, then so I might as well go out swinging." And basically, in this sequence, a lot of guys die in this effort
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do this prison break, and they all kind of just accept that. And that's a huge theme in all of season 1 of Andor. Again, is the cost
Yeah.
associated
Yes.
with being willing to actually be part of the resistance, is understanding that you might not live
Yeah. Yeah.
to make it out. And I love that Andy Serkis is the guy who leads all of these men to freedom, that he gets on that microphone and gives that speech and leads everybody out, and they get to the door and he just kind of has this look like, I
Yeah.
can't
I
swim.
can't swim. Yeah.
And I think that's it's so, to me it's so poetic that it's like he's like, I got you this far and I'm not going to be able to participate in it. If
Yeah.
I jump in there, I'm dead. And
Yeah.
you know, and honestly, the first time I watched it, I thought, couldn't he jump in there and just like, couldn't Diego or couldn't yeah, Diego
Andor.
Luna, couldn't Andor just put his arm around him and
Yeah.
just swim
Teach
him
him how
out?
to swim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't he just swim him out? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
couldn't a couple guys just grab onto him and just
Yeah.
help him swim out? You know, but I think that it's the screenplay saying something deeper there. It's just saying
Right.
Andy Serkis's character, his rebellion was what got this far. And
Yeah.
this story is full of people whose rebellion carries them so far. And that's why this episode ends with Luthen's speech, which I think is all
Yeah.
about how, like, he talks about how the sacrifice of being a part of this rebellion is
Yeah.
knowing that you likely won't live to see the fruits of the labor. That,
Right.
like, I burn my life for a sunrise I know I'll never see,
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
such a, you know,
Well, and he
yeah.
says something else in there that he says, I've do, or he basically says every tactic
I'm
I use is what the Empire uses.
I'm
And
condemned to use the tools of my
yes,
enemy to defeat them, which is
yes,
just like,
it's
oh,
awesome. Yeah.
such a good line.
And it's, I love Stellan Skarsgård. He's probably my favorite character in this show.
Yeah.
And I love when he switches to his very, you know, his cover.
Yeah.
He plays it really, really well. I love,
Yeah.
he talks with his hands a lot. You know, it's a really
Yes,
great.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, and he,
yeah,
like, I love how he does that.
yeah.
The problem that I had, I love his speech. I wish it was given. This is a nitpick. I wish it was given to a character that was more. I know the character is important, but all of a sudden we realize that this guy is like, it all happens within that moment. So this is the thing that makes me frustrated, is because they're spending a lot of time on information that we know and very little time on information that we don't know. Like, this guy gets in the elevator and it's like, oh yeah, it's that one guy. And he's like, hey, I want to leave. And he's like, no, you can't. And then he gives this amazing speech. And I was like, that was awesome. That was an amazing speech. Like, I wish I would have known about this character more so that it would have more of an impact to the character and then more of an impact on me. Now that's like a small thing, because the speech itself was so amazing, and I did get it very quickly. But again, they're spending little bit of time on this character when they could have spent more time with him to kind of broaden that impact.
Well, see, and I think what the show is doing with that moment is showing you that, like, we have no idea how many people Luthen actually
Yes,
has.
it
And
is.
so it's a
Yeah,
reveal to us in the audience that's like this guy that you've been watching in all of these scenes, that because the show does keep every time we're
it
in
does.
every time
Yeah,
we're in like an ISB task force scene, there's like certain characters that get featured. And
yeah,
we know why Didramiro is featured. We're like, okay, we're following a storyline
yeah,
there. There's the other guy that's sort of like competitive with her that we're like, hey, there's a
yeah,
storyline there that
yeah,
she and this guy are sort of jockeying. There's the guy that's kind of in charge that's their superior that sort of favors Deidre over the other guy. But then
yeah,
we also keep checking in with this like redhead guy with the mustache, and we don't know
yeah,
who he is. And so I do think that there's a payoff here of like the reason why we kept kind of showing you this guy
yeah.
is
It
because
does.
he's one of Luthen's operatives. And it also just sort of suggests the bigger network of Luthen's
Yeah,
operation. That
yeah,
Luthen, I love the idea that he has been, it sort of like reminds me of The Departed, of like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Departed, of like
yeah,
what it means to be deep undercover, and
yeah,
that he has two people in the Boston PD who know who he is, and it
yeah,
has to be that way because if more people know, he's jeopardized.
yeah,
And when those two people are gone, he's just like, well, crap, I'm out in the wind, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
the fact that like Luthen and this guy have to have very, very they talk to each
yeah,
other very sparingly
yeah.
because they have to be really careful about when they communicate. They have to assume that this guy is being watched pretty
Right,
regularly.
right.
And he has to just live the life of
Yeah,
of an ISB officer. And I
yeah,
like us learning in this moment because I also we see that this guy like he plays his role well. Like he's
yeah,
helpful
yeah.
and he is a useful, dutiful ISB officer.
Right.
And to
He's
find out,
involved in everything. Yeah,
yeah, and to find out that he's actually working with Luthen tells us anybody could be.
yeah,
Any of these characters could secretly
yeah,
be operatives that Luthen works with, you know, and
yeah,
we could find it out later. And
yeah,
that speech to me is more about telling us the actual expanse of what Luthen has done. And also I love that that guy kind of comes to him and is like, "You have no idea how hard this has been for me. It's
yeah,
6 years of
yeah,
my life,
yeah,
and I every day is a lie. Like I'm
yeah,
lying to everyone in my life." And the fact that Luthen's response is like, "Yeah, that's what you signed up for,
yeah.
dude. Like
Too bad.
that's what it means to be a hero. Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this kind of situation, I'm sorry to tell you, I've
yeah,
got nothing
yeah,
else on offer for you."
yeah,
Like, and he's like, "For me, do you want to know what I'm gonna do? I everything about my life is
yeah,
like I love that he goes, I wrote an equation years ago from which
yeah,
there's only one inescapable conclusion. I'm damned for what I do.
yeah,
You know, just like I
yeah,
have to be a bad person,
yeah.
even including you. Like I had to like
Right.
kind of ruin your life for
Yeah,
the cause."
yeah.
And
He's basically like Thanos in many ways because he's like, I'm the only one who knows this, and I'm going to go to the extreme measures to get what I want. So he is very much the end justifies the means, which again is what makes Luthen such a great character.
yeah,
Now, this scene again is more of a nitpick because it's like if it was the other character, if it was the black character, and I'm sorry I don't know his name, but the
yeah,
one that Dedra has problems with,
yeah.
I almost wonder if that would have been more impactful because it's like, oh, that guy, like, wow, like he's really like,
I
but
wouldn't
that might
buy
be
it
a
though with
personal preference.
I
Yeah,
think that the way that that character is sold to me is just like, nah, he's just like a smug
right,
ladder
right,
climber. Yeah.
and it's not necessarily like maybe not that character, but if this character had more interactions and was doing things that kind of like made him more prominent. He's really in the background. The mustache guy. He's really it's like you see him but he's not really
But
but
on
again
a
that
but
might
on
be
a
intentional.
well, and on a rewatch, you can see that layer underneath his performance. I think this actor does a
Yeah.
really nice job because when you rewatch it knowing who he is, you can
Yeah.
see that he's playing a part. That
Yeah.
that
The
his, you know, that
yeah,
he does a good job of masking his fear, but
right.
you can see that
Right.
there is a layer of fear underneath his character. And
Yeah. The
I think that
problem with the problem the other problem with this rewatch is I forgot that he was the one who was the
oh, see,
spy.
I didn't. I knew
See,
who it was.
I was
Yeah.
like, who is it again? Like I can't remember who he's going to talk to. So
Yeah.
but you know, that's just personal.
I've
That's
rewatched
personal
that
thing.
Luthen scene so many times that I knew
Oh, it's
exactly
really
who it
good.
was.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
that's
It's
it's
good.
sort of again like The Departed, where it's like when you find out that the BPD has other guys in in Frank's gang, you know, like, and also that Frank has other guys other than Matt Damon in the gang. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
that scene
It's
when,
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
when Leonardo DiCaprio finds out like there's another guy who's also a mole and that for the BPD, and he's like, they didn't tell me about you.
Yeah.
And then I like that element of like a spy thriller where there's
Yeah.
just some kind of side character who's like, oh no, I'm also part of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that I
I
like not knowing that until that moment, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a personal preference,
Yeah.
which makes sense. So it didn't
Yeah.
work as well for me. I think the my next biggest problem that I have is with the ending. I love the
Mhm.
speech that his mom gives.
That's
I
great.
think the actress is amazing. I do like how it gets everybody to be, to actually go against the empire.
It's such a powerful
It
culminate
is.
climactic
It is.
moment for me, yeah.
It is. This is my problem. Andor is not doing anything. I get it. He does get Bix, and this was more of like a first time watching problem that still just kind of gets me irked. It's also that like I get that there's also like there's not much security, but he literally only has to beat up one guy to get to Bix. Not even to
Yeah.
get to Bix, to get out with Bix.
Yeah.
And it's like he's not doing anything. Like he is not a part of the climax, at least not in a way that he's like, if anything, he could have been like, I have to get Bix. Like like we already know that they have a thing and he really does love her, right? Or
Mhm.
at least, but he just like, the speech is going on and everybody's fighting, and then he just like walks in and gets Bix and hits a guy, and then they're out, and he takes her to the plane, and that's it. And that really bothers me that he is nowhere. He's not a big impact on the climax of this show. And the
Yeah.
climax is fun, but there's not much that happens.
Yeah.
Like the big guy who I love his character. I love the actor. I love how he plays it. Like they beat up a few people, but like not much happens. They just leave. And it does start a rebellion. So I get that it's not, but it really bothers me that Andor is really not doing anything in the climax.
I think I completely understand,
Yes.
again, like the passive,
Yeah.
protagonist, or why is the protagonist not involved in our
Yeah.
climax in a more active way,
Right.
especially if the show is called Andor. But I think the thing about Tony Gilroy's Star Wars universe with Rogue One and Andor
Mhm.
is it's always about something bigger than the main characters. What we're
Yeah.
conditioned
Yeah.
for in Star Wars is that our main characters should be there for the big showdown.
Right.
Oscar Isaac and Rey and um what's his name?
Finn.
And
Finn.
Finn, they should all be there. For not just be there, but they should be some of the main, you
Yeah.
know, thing, you know, like Lando Calrissian should be there and helping
Yeah.
out in
Yeah.
a big way. Our main characters are a big part of the climax. Luke Skywalker is going to be the one to shoot the torpedoes into the
Yeah.
ventilation
Yeah.
shaft. You know, Rey's going to be the one to have the climactic lightsaber fight. Our main heroes are going to be the people, you know, Harry Potter is going to be showing down with Voldemort. What I actually really like personally about Tony Gilroy's universe is his characters are always just like a piece of the bigger thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even though I get that the show's called Andor, but while it is about Andor's personal conversion into being
Yeah.
a full-blown resistance fighter, it's also about the birth of and the announcement. I love the line from Deidre where she says, you know, I don't think that this is a robbery. And he says, what is it? And she goes, it's an announcement. And this
Yes.
whole
Yeah.
first season is about the rebellion coming out of the shadows. I
Yeah.
love all the scenes between Saw Gerrera and
Yeah.
Luthen where they talk about their different philosophies when it comes to how to rebel. Because Saw Gerrera is kind of a revolutionary who prefers to be out in the open. And I think that Saw Gerrera's problem is he's kind of an anarchist who just is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to kill as many Imperial officers as I can and blow up as many Imperial ships as I can. And
Yeah.
I don't really care that if there's a system of power to replace them when they're gone. I just want them gone.
Yeah.
I just want that. But I think that Luthen believes that if we're going to fight them, we need to have a plan in place of what we're
Right.
going to replace it with. And that's
Yeah.
going to take a, you know, a more surgical approach. And I
Yep.
like the sort of interplay between those two philosophies.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, while Saw Gerrera has always been out there in the open, visible, this show is about when there's enough people who get awoken, like who wake up to
Yeah.
the cause, that the rebellion can become the Rebel Alliance, that Mon Mothma
Yeah.
no longer
Yeah.
has to be an undercover senator, that she can be who we know
Right.
her to be when it comes to the Rebel Alliance that's stationed on Yavin 5, which by the way, there's a great Yavin 5 little teaser in the first few episodes of Andor season 2. I don't know if you caught that the planet that Andor was on that he flew away from, it like at the end of that episode, they show us that it's Yavin 5. It's the headquarters
Oh,
of the
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
headquarters
yeah.
it's the headquarters of the Rebel Alliance. It's like that's their
That's right.
and so it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, that's kind of a fun little thing.
yeah.
But I think that this climax, I get being like, this should be more about what Andor's, claiming his place in the rebellion. I think he's
Right.
already done that. I think him escaping from that prison, I think he's
Yeah.
already, and I think what we get from our main character here is him giving himself to Luthen. He's showing up on Luthen's ship at the end of that episode and saying,
Right.
"I'm yours. If you'll have me, I want to be part of your cause, but if you
Yeah.
want to kill me, you can kill me." And I think that he's there to say like, "I'm giving myself to the cause. I'm fully in."
Well,
And
and yeah, and
yeah,
I do like, I get it. The rebellion is starting. That's the climax, which I do like. I like that everybody on Ferrix is like, we're against the Empire. It's
yeah.
awesome. I love it. The thing that I have a problem with is that it was so easy for Andor to get Bix and then leave. And
Sure.
so it's like,
I think that's a
if
fair
there was
criticism.
more, yeah, if there was more, like, I mean, there's one guy.
Yeah.
It's like, please give him more to do.
Mhm.
Like, while all of this is going on, it's fine that he is not involved in them starting to fight against the Empire. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem that it was so easy for him at that point during the climax, where it's like, please have him do more. Like, have him have more guys that he has to get through, and have him, like, be safer, and or have it be more dangerous for him, because it
I
was
get that.
really easy. So that's the problem that I have, that kind of goes into all of those other ones. I mean, I think that's most of my problems, but I understand why people like it. Tony Gilroy is extremely talented. Everybody's giving their best in this show, and it
Bo
is
Willimon
very,
too. Bo Willimon's such a good TV writer, and
yeah,
he's another
yeah, that's
writer on
right.
this show that just kills it.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, they obviously know what they're doing, and they're making something that is doing a lot of different things that a lot of people don't like, which is fine. I mean, I do like a lot of it, but then it's like these little nagging things that just like, it makes me frustrated for certain things. So it makes me not love the series as much, but I do appreciate the chances that they take. And I can see how well everybody is doing. So I feel like I'm in the minority, which is fine, And if you love it, that's awesome. If you don't love it, that's okay. I'm still going to watch the show, because I do want to see what happens. And there's so much good about it that I do at least like watching it for those things. So
Yeah, I think that this show just scratches a lot of itches on like my personal just
yes.
interests
Yeah.
list, where it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
I like watching a show about that feels grounded and realistic about a resistance force against a
Right.
totalitarian regime.
Right.
I think that that's really interesting. I think it's really interesting to try to give well-rounded character uh you know builds to ISB officers, rather than just being like evil people who are part of the evil force, actually giving them like
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
storylines. I think is really, really cool. I
Yeah.
think giving the resistance itself like these stakes that feel so human and so relatable and personal and
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah.
I also think that like I said, my expectations of what I want out of a Star Wars property is just like, please don't actively suck,
Yeah.
So like, I
Yeah.
can accept something like The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. I don't really like The Rise of Skywalker. I think it's kind of I think it kind of actively sucks more
Right.
often
Right.
than it doesn't. But like the other two have enough things going on where I'm like, at least it's not like actively difficult to watch because it actively sucks the way that some of the prequels
Right.
can. Like,
Right.
I think Attack of the Clones like actively sucks to watch. Like, it's a really, I think there are aspects of episode 1 that are very cool and very watchable,
Yeah.
aspects that
Yeah.
are kind of hard to watch. And I
Yeah.
think there are aspects of episode 3 that are very cool and very watchable. And I think there are aspects that are kind of hard to watch.
Yeah.
And and then I think that there are some of these shows that Disney Plus has made that it's been like, this is actively difficult to watch because it's so poorly written and
You're
so
right.
poorly,
Right.
like Boba Fett is just bad, just a bad TV show. And
Yeah.
there are elements of The Mandalorian that I think are really corny and kind of just
Mhm.
lazy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
repetitive. But when my expectation is like, just don't suck, and then something comes
Yeah.
in that goes
Yeah.
so far above my expectation that's like, not only does this not suck, but it seems so considered and
Yeah. Yeah.
thoughtful and mature and layered and philosophically interesting and challenging and intriguing, and
Right.
there's so many questions
Right.
about all of these characters that I'm genuinely leaning forward and like thinking about, and there's so much offered on a rewatch too, and I personally love the structure of it. I feel like they fit
Right.
so
Right.
much story in there. I can hear your nitpicks about maybe repetitive information and wanting to just get to more information about other characters and other things. I can hear some of those nitpicks. Some of them I just flat out disagree with and just go, "Oh, that's just
Right.
different tastes." Like I just
Right. Right.
I
Right.
I like that beat and I think that beat works and we've, gone
Right.
through all of that. But yeah, I just think that this show for me checks all of my boxes of like it does. It's like the Star Wars nerd in me is so satisfied by having like something that's quality that I
Yeah.
can go, "Oh, cool. It's not just this stupid thing that I liked when I was a kid and I'm trying to
Right.
justify continuing to like it as an adult. I
Yeah.
now at least have one thing here that I can point at and go, this doesn't suck. This is good."
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, but that's my take on it.
Right.
Let's do our scores
Okay.
of Andor season 1. We do a technical rating on the show. We do scores out of 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. We do a technical rating of how well we think the show is constructed at a technical level, the craft of the show. We do a score for the ending. How well did they stick the landing? We do a score for rewatchability. We should know something about that because we just rewatched it. We do a score for cultural impact, and we do a subjective score. So, Kramer, what is your technical rating for Andor season 1?
My technical rating is a 9 because everything besides all the problems that I have with mainly it comes down to the writing. Even though the writing is very good overall, as a
Yeah.
whole, it is very good. But the production design, the cinematography, the acting, everything is so good. I can't give it a 10 because I do have problems with it, but I can definitely give it a 9 because it is
Mhm.
done so well. Like it is so beautiful. Like Coruscant, especially her apartment and everything just looks so good.
Yeah.
It's really, really well done.
There's so many practical locations that they shot in and
Yes.
then mapped in backgrounds that just
Yeah.
look so good and real and
Yeah,
textured
and you can
and
feel it. Like, I
yeah.
love that Ferrex is a real place. Like, I mean, it's
Mhm.
probably on a back lot, but, like, you can feel it, you can see it. It's not on a volume, like, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a real place, and I love the feel of the entire series.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I think that Attack of the Clones is actively bad to watch and look at is it's
Oh,
Space
yeah.
Jam. It's
Yeah.
a hideous movie. Like it is like visually like a hideous looking movie. Just
Space
like
Jam.
all of these it's Space Jam. It is
Yeah, I love
live
it.
actors in a cartoon movie.
So
And I
true.
say that all the time. I'm like literally Attack of the Clones
Yeah,
is like that Brad Pitt movie Cool World, like where
yeah,
it's just like it's Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen walking around in cartoon land, and
yeah,
I hate looking at it, and also the
yeah,
script is terrible. Natalie Portman is awful in that movie. Hayden Christensen is unwatchable,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
so and you got to say that that's the script and the director, and also the
Right,
fact that they
right,
were just doing these movies
right.
exclusively on green screens. The environment of Andor and of Rogue One, the cinematography make it feel so real and
Right.
grounded and
Yes.
cool and yeah.
Yeah.
I gave it a 10
Yeah.
technically. For me, it's just I think that the construction of the season, like I said, it's one of my favorite seasons of television
Yeah.
ever. I
Yeah.
love the little trilogies of stories. I love the way that they build on each other. I love the
Yeah.
way that they build suspense
Yeah.
within each one of them. I love so many of the characters. I love the speeches. I love
Yeah.
the political
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
speeches and
Yeah.
I get hyped while I watch the show. I
Yeah.
genuinely every time I've watched the One Way Out episode, and I've watched it 3 times, I'm, like, cheering. I go like, "Let's
It is fun.
go!" Like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Ah!" Like,
One
I get
way out.
I get
One
so
way out.
I get so hyped. Okay, so how about the
Yeah.
ending of, season 1 for you?
The ending is a big problem, and this is a
Yeah.
low score because of what I just talked about. So
Yep.
I gave it a 6 because
Yeah.
it just the rebellion is great, but his story just is too easy, and it's not a satisfying conclusion to that season. Like, I know he's still going on and everything, and he had a great arc itself, but that ending episode just makes me really frustrated.
Yeah, cool. I, hear that, and I
Yeah.
even I knocked my score from a 10 to a 9 in honor of your criticism, that I will
Okay,
actually
okay.
hear that I think a show called Andor could
Yeah,
maybe give our main character Andor more to do in
yeah,
our climactic scene of the season.
yeah.
I can actually go, fair point, and I think that even though it doesn't need to be all about him, he doesn't need to come in
Yeah,
and be
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
hero, just giving him maybe a little bit more to do. But I
Yeah,
also think that yeah, but I love Marva's speech.
yeah,
I
it's great.
get I get hyped every time I hear it.
Yeah,
I love watching the rebellion kind of come to life in that episode and
yeah,
kind
yep,
of the roof be blown off of the whole thing, that it's like, all right, here we go, pedal to the metal
mhm,
now.
yeah,
And I yeah, so I'm gonna give it a 9, but I did
nice.
dock a point for what you said.
Okay, nice, I'll
Re
take it.
Rewatchability, so we just rewatched it.
Rewatchability, yeah,
Yeah.
I rewatched it. I gave it a 7. I feel like that's high. I mean, it on rewatch, I liked it a whole lot more.
Mhm.
And I think these are a lot of problems that I have that are not the biggest problems. And I mean, Tony Gilroy is extremely talented. And when you look at everything as a whole and when you break everything down, it's pretty amazing what he was able to do. So I don't know, maybe this will go up as I, like maybe all my scores will go up as I
Yeah,
revisit this down the
yeah.
line. But 7.
Yeah, I did not know if I was gonna have the same experience with it on a
Yeah.
so I had rewatched episode 10 before. I rewatched a couple episodes because I liked the show so much the first time I saw it, but, like,
Right. Right.
episode was, like, one of my favorite episodes of TV I'd ever seen, so I was like, "I gotta at least watch that episode again,"
Yeah.
and I loved it. But coming back to it, I was like, as a whole, let's see if I still have the same experience. I might have liked it even more the second time, and
Nice.
it might have gone genuinely into, like, one of my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. I
Very
give the
cool.
rewatch a 10. I don't often rewatch shows,
Yeah.
and this is a show I could see myself coming back to again and again. Now,
Awesome.
this could be affected by how well they stick the landing at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes my feeling about a TV show is completely ruined by the way that it ends. Like,
It's very true.
I have like Game of Thrones was one of my favorite shows when it was on TV, and the ending of the show kind of ruined the whole show for me. And so
Yeah.
there's definitely shows that I've gotten really into where later seasons kind of ruined the whole experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it will be up to how well they stick the landing of season 2,
Yeah.
how I feel, but I think I'm always gonna feel like season 1 of Andor is a very good season of television, and,
Mhm.
the rewatch really paid off for me, and I think I got a lot out of it. So
Yeah.
solid 10 for me. How
Yeah.
about, the cultural impact of Andor season 1?
I gave it a 9. It really, I mean, the vast majority, I know there's for Star Wars fans, there's a lot of it's kind of not maybe split down the middle, but it seems to be divisive. But I think for the most part, it's had a big cultural impact. Everybody thinks it's kind of the best Star Wars thing that's come out in a long time. They appreciate all that's good about it, even within like because of the production design, because of all the stuff that they're doing. It's really fun. So I think it's had a really big impact, and it also is any regular person who just likes film or media can watch this show and learn a lot from it.
Yeah. I gave it an 8 because, and I agree with you that there is sort of a niche fandom that really feels the way that I feel about this show, which is
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this is and I just think that it's the fact that it was so unlikely that it's
Yeah,
like a series about a character from a movie no one thought they ever wanted to see
yeah,
turns out to be one of the it just seems so, especially given all of the other things that Disney is doing with this property that are just so kind of lackluster and like meh, to have something like this that feels
yeah,
so high quality and prestige, I think has had a big impact. I have it at an 8 because I still feel like weirdly it's one of the lesser watched shows. And I
mm,
think it's just because a lot of people outside of the Star Wars fandom don't really know what it is or why they should care. I think
yeah,
people have heard of Obi-Wan Kenobi, they've heard of Boba Fett. The Mandalorian has Pedro Pascal in it, and everyone likes Pedro Pascal, and he looks like Boba Fett. And so
yeah,
there's at least like something there for people to latch into. But I think a lot of people have I think Andor's been kind of missed by
mm,
a lot of people because it's sort of like, I
right,
don't know what that is, and I don't know why I should care. And it seems like you have to be like into the fandom to actually care about that. And I really have been trying to push over the last few years, like exactly what you just said, which is even people who aren't fans of this should be able to get into it. It's
yeah,
the it's kind of the only thing I think in Star Wars that even people who aren't necessarily Star Wars fans could enjoy, because I think the writing is that good and
Yeah.
the production quality is that good.
Yeah.
But so far, I don't know. I feel like capitalistically, Disney has more of an incentive to go for the easier to digest stuff than it
Yeah.
does for the heavier stuff like
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think long term, I think this is going to, in the big long term, going to be like it's going to stand the test of time as one of the
Yeah.
strongest entries into the Star Wars cinematic universe.
Yeah, I agree.
Your subjective score for Andor?
My subjective score definitely went up because of on this rewatch. I definitely liked it a lot more, seeing the craft of everything, which is always really good. So, but I still gave it a 6.5.
Mhm.
This might go up as I think about it more, and even if they stick the landing, you know, if season 2 really does stick the landing, it'll probably go up, and with on further rewatches. But I don't know. I'm begrudgingly like saying that it was better. So the
Yeah.
0.5 is good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm unsurprisingly at a solid 10 on this show. It's
Nice.
just,
Nice.
this show is just scratching all of my itches.
That's great.
It checks all of my boxes. And so where are you at,
Yeah.
audience? Are you Andor is the best? Are you Andor has lots of little teeny things that frustrate me, and they all build up to overall frustrating watching experience? Where you at? Let us know. Sound off in the comments. And Cramer will be chatting back and forth with you. Kramer's
Yeah.
active in there talking
Oh
to
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I'm not, but he will be. And but yeah, and are you watching Andor season 2? What do you think? And yeah.
And next week.
Yeah, next week, if you want to watch along and join us, we will be watching. What do we say we're gonna watch?
Adolescence.
We're gonna be talking about Adolescence. Somebody
Yes.
in the comments suggested that we talk about Adolescence. The name of this show is The Oner, and Adolescence, if you don't know, is a series on Netflix. So we're gonna stay in kind of streaming TV land for one more week. And Adolescence is a critically acclaimed show on Netflix. It's a 4-episode series where every episode is like an hour-long oner. And there's a lot that's been talked about in film culture about does the oner technique here, is it warranted by the storytelling, or is it just kind of a gimmick? We're going to give you our take and our thoughts next week. If you have not watched Adolescence yet, watch it on Netflix if you want to watch along, and that's what we'll be talking about next week. We'll see you then. Take it easy until then.
Bye-bye.
May the force be with you.